The eerie blue glow of Kron's twin moons cast long shadows across the gleaming spires of the capital city. In the highest chamber of the tallest tower, two young women stood before the High Council, their slender forms trembling despite their efforts to appear calm. The sisters, Zara and Goya, wore the traditional silver jumpsuits of their people, but their eyes blazed with a defiance that set them apart from the expressionless faces of the counselors. "You stand accused of spreading dangerous ideas of individuality and personal freedom," intoned the chief counselor, his voice a grating monotone. "Such notions threaten the very fabric of our society. What say you in your defense?" Zara, the elder sister, stepped forward, her voice ringing out clear and strong, echoing off the polished crystal walls. "We say that our society stagnates under the weight of conformity. We say that true progress comes from embracing diversity and allowing each person to reach their full potential." A ripple of shock passed through the assembled crowd. Such words were unprecedented in the history of Kron. Goya moved to stand shoulder to shoulder with her sister, adding her own fierce declaration. "We will not apologize for seeking a better way. Our people deserve more than to be cogs in a machine." The chief counselor's face remained impassive, but a dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. "Your words only confirm your guilt. The sentence is exile. You will be sent to the primitive world known as Earth, where you may experience firsthand the chaos that results from unchecked individualism." Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. Exile was a fate worse than death in the eyes of most Krons. Zara and Goya exchanged a brief glance, a mixture of fear and determination passing between them. They had known the risks when they began speaking out, but the reality of their punishment still sent a chill through their bodies. "Guards, take them to the teleportation chamber," the chief counselor commanded. "Let their fate serve as a warning to any who would challenge our way of life." As the sisters were led away, Goya leaned close to Zara and whispered, "Whatever happens, we face it together." Zara nodded, squeezing her sister's hand. The harsh glare of fluorescent lights replaced the soft glow of Kron's moons as Zara and Goya materialized in a sterile white room. The sudden shift left them disoriented, their enhanced senses overwhelmed by the unfamiliar sights, sounds, and smells of Earth. A group of humans in military uniforms stood before them, weapons raised. At their center was a tall, imposing man with graying hair and a stern expression. He stepped forward, his voice gruff but not unkind. "I am General Harper. Welcome to Earth. Though I understand the circumstances are less than ideal for you." Zara straightened, adopting a regal bearing despite her inner turmoil. "I am Zara, and this is my sister Goya. We come in peace, though not by choice." The general nodded, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "We've been expecting you. Your arrival was preceded by a message from your world's leaders. You'll be placed under observation while we determine the level of threat, if any, you pose to our planet." Goya bristled at this, her voice sharp. "Threat? We are the ones who have been cast out, sent to this primitive world as punishment." A young soldier near the general stiffened at Goya's words, his hand tightening on his weapon. General Harper held up a hand to calm him. "Easy, Thomas. Remember, they're far from home and everything they know. A little hostility is to be expected." He turned back to the sisters. "You'll find Earth is full of surprises. It may be primitive by your standards, but we have our own strengths. I suggest you keep an open mind." As they were led from the room, Zara and Goya took in their surroundings with a mixture of disdain and fascination. The base was a maze of corridors and rooms filled with technology that seemed almost outdated to their advanced minds, yet there was an energy to the place, a sense of purpose and drive that was undeniable. They were brought to a large room that would serve as their quarters. It was Spartan by Kronian standards, but comfortable enough. General Harper addressed them one final time before leaving. "You'll be under observation, but you're not prisoners. We'll begin orientation tomorrow to help you acclimate to life on Earth. Rest now and remember this is an opportunity as much as it is a punishment. What you make of it is up to you." As the door closed behind him, Zara and Goya sank onto the nearest bed, the reality of their situation finally sinking in. They were alone on an alien world, cut off from everything and everyone they had ever known. Goya's voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "Zara, what are we going to do?" Zara pulled her sister close, her own fear and uncertainty hidden behind a mask of determination. "We survive, Goya. We learn, and maybe just maybe we find a way to show both Earth and Kron that there's a better path forward for all of us. As they drifted off to sleep, exhausted by the day's events, neither sister could have imagined the adventures, dangers, and unexpected bonds that awaited them on this strange new world. The next few weeks passed in a blur of new experiences and information. Zara and Goya found themselves alternately fascinated and frustrated by life on Earth. The sheer diversity of human culture was overwhelming, a cacophony of languages, beliefs, and ways of life that stood in stark contrast to the rigid uniformity of Kron. Their days were filled with briefings and tours supervised by a rotating cast of military personnel. Two soldiers in particular caught their attention: Thomas, the young man who had bristled at Goya's initial hostility, and his friend Eric, a quiet but observant presence who seemed to catch every nuance of the sisters' reactions to their new environment. One afternoon, as they toured a bustling city center, Goya found herself drawn into a heated debate with Thomas about the merits of Earth's economic systems. "But it's chaos," Goya exclaimed, gesturing at the crowded streets and varied storefronts. "How can you possibly allocate resources efficiently when everyone is pursuing their own interests?" Thomas grinned, a spark of challenge in his eyes. "That's the beauty of it all. Those individual choices and actions come together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. It's not perfect, but it drives innovation and progress in a way top-down control never could." Goya opened her mouth to argue further, but Zara cut in, her tone thoughtful. "He has a point, sister. Look around us. There's an energy here, a creativity that we never saw on Kron. Perhaps there's something to be said for a little chaos." As they continued their tour, Zara found herself walking alongside Eric. The soldier had been quiet for most of the day, but now he spoke up, his voice soft but intense. "You're starting to see it, aren't you? The potential in our way of life." Zara nodded slowly. "I am. It's unsettling. Everything we were taught tells me this shouldn't work, and yet—" Eric's eyes met hers, and for a moment, Zara felt a connection that transcended their different origins. Sometimes the most beautiful things grow from the cracks in the pavement: chaos and order, freedom and responsibility. It's all about finding the right balance. As the weeks turned into months, the sisters found themselves becoming more integrated into life on the base. They began to assist with various research projects, their advanced knowledge proving invaluable in fields ranging from physics to medicine. Zara discovered a passion for Earth's arts and literature, spending hours lost in books and museums. Goya, always the more practical of the two, threw herself into studying Earth's technologies, determined to bridge the gap between Kronian and human scientific understanding. Their relationships with Thomas and Eric deepened as well. What had begun as wary observation on both sides slowly blossomed into genuine friendship. The soldiers were endlessly curious about life on Kron, while the sisters peppered them with questions about Earth's history and culture. One evening, as the four of them shared a meal in the base's cafeteria, Thomas leaned in conspiratorially. "So, what do you really think of us primitive humans now?" Goya rolled her eyes, but there was affection in her voice as she replied, "Still primitive, but not without potential." Eric laughed, a rare sound that made Zara's heart skip a beat. "High praise indeed. I think that calls for a celebration. What do you say we sneak you off base this weekend? There's a whole world out there beyond these walls." Zara hesitated, glancing at her sister. "Is that allowed? We're still under observation, after all." Thomas waved a hand dismissively. "Leave that to us. It's time you saw the real Earth, not just what the brass wants you to see." As they finalized their plans, none of them noticed the shadow that passed briefly across the cafeteria window, a shape that was decidedly not human. The weekend arrived, bringing with it a sense of nervous excitement. Thomas and Eric had managed to secure permission for a short excursion under the guise of cultural acclimatization. As they drove away from the base in a nondescript SUV, Zara felt a thrill of anticipation. Their destination was a small coastal town far from the bustle of the city. As they crested a hill, the vast expanse of the ocean came into view, stretching to the horizon. Goya gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I've never seen anything like it." Thomas grinned, clearly pleased by their reaction. "Just wait until you feel the sand between your toes and the spray on your face." The journey was only beginning, and Zara and Goya were about to discover that sometimes, The unexpected paths lead to the most profound transformations. The sun blazed brightly overhead as they arrived at the coastal town, the warmth of Earth's rays a stark contrast to the cool, dimly lit corridors of the base. As they stepped out of the SUV, the sisters were immediately enveloped by the salty breeze and the rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the shore. Zara and Goya exchanged wide-eyed glances, excitement dancing in their eyes. This was a world so vibrant, so alive, and so different from Kron. "Welcome to Seabreeze," Thomas announced, a hint of pride in his voice. "It's a small town, but it has its charm. And today, you get to experience it all." Zara took a deep breath, inhaling the fresh, briny air. "It smells incredible," she said, a genuine smile spreading across her face. Goya nodded, her gaze fixed on the glistening ocean that seemed to stretch on forever. "Just wait until you feel the water," Eric said, his tone teasing. "You'll either love it or be shocked at how cold it is." With an eager grin, Goya dashed towards the sandy beach, her silver jumpsuit fluttering in the wind. Zara followed, laughter bubbling from her lips as they both kicked off their shoes and let the warm sand slip between their toes. It felt utterly freeing, and for a moment, they forgot the weight of their exile and the expectations placed upon them. As they approached the water's edge, Goya crouched down, letting the gentle waves lap at her feet. "It's so different from the artificial lakes back home," she marveled, her eyes sparkling with wonder. "This feels alive." Zara joined her, splashing water playfully. "We should have done this sooner," she laughed. "Why did we ever think Kron was enough?" Thomas and Eric watched, sharing a knowing smile. "Sometimes, you need to break free to discover what's truly out there," Thomas said, leaning back against the sand. The sisters continued to explore the beach, their earlier anxieties melting away like the ice in a warm sun. They built sandcastles that quickly collapsed under the waves, their laughter echoing across the shoreline. With each passing moment, they felt more connected not only to each other but to this strange, beautiful world. After a while, they settled onto a blanket that Thomas had brought along, enjoying a picnic of earth delicacies. Goya eagerly dug into a bag of potato chips, her eyes lighting up at the salty crunch. "These are amazing. How do you even make them?" Eric chuckled, explaining the process while Thomas shared stories from his childhood. The camaraderie blossomed, and as they exchanged anecdotes and laughter, Zara couldn't help but notice the easy way Thomas and Eric interacted with each other and with her sister. There was a spark in Goya's eyes that she had never seen before. Feeling a twinge of emotion, Zara leaned closer to her sister. "Are you happy?" she asked quietly. Goya looked at her, surprise evident on her face. "Of course. Yes, I am. It's just, I didn't expect to feel so free." Zara nodded, understanding. "It's the same for me. It's like we were reborn here, away from all those rigid rules and expectations." Just then, Thomas turned to them with a mischievous grin. "So, are you two ready to try something truly Earth-like? What do you have in mind?" Goya asked, her curiosity piqued. "Surfing," he declared, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "You'll get a true taste of Earth's adventure." Zara and Goya exchanged glances filled with uncertainty. "Surfing?" Zara echoed. "Isn't that dangerous?" "Not if you know what you're doing," Eric reassured them. "Don't worry, I'll teach you." A rush of adrenaline surged through Zara as she considered the idea. "All right, let's do it," she exclaimed, surprising even herself. With a shared sense of daring, they gathered the surfboards from the beach shop. Goya was excited but also apprehensive. "What if we fall? We've never done anything like this before." Thomas chuckled, handing her a board. "You'll fall. Probably a lot. But that's part of the fun. Just get back up and try again." As they paddled out into the waves, Zara's heart raced with exhilaration. The water was cooler than she had anticipated, but she quickly adapted, her body adjusting to the rhythm of the sea. Goya, who had been hesitant at first, soon found her footing, laughter spilling from her lips as she struggled to maintain balance on her board. "You can do it!" Zara shouted, her encouragement carrying over the sound of crashing waves. Goya finally managed to stand up on the board, her joy infectious as she rode a small wave. "Zara, look! I'm doing it!" Goya yelled, a mix of surprise and delight on her face. But just as she celebrated, a larger wave came crashing in, and she lost her balance, tumbling into the water with a splash. "Goya!" Zara cried, her heart racing. But as she surfaced, Goya's laughter rang out, and she waved her arms in the air, completely unfazed. "Okay, maybe that was a little chaotic," Goya called, wiping seawater from her face. Zara couldn't help but laugh, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. "It's all right. Just keep trying." They spent the rest of the afternoon catching waves, their laughter echoing across the beach. Thomas and Eric cheered them on, occasionally jumping into the water to show them the ropes. The sisters felt alive, embracing the chaos of the moment, pushing past their fears. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, they gathered back on the beach, exhausted but exhilarated. They collapsed onto the sand, breathing heavily and grinning at one another. "Today was incredible," Zara said, looking out at the ocean, her heart swelling with gratitude for this unexpected adventure. Goya nodded, her cheeks flushed with joy. "We should do this every week." Thomas and Eric exchanged glances, both of them sharing a smile. "Maybe we can make that happen," Eric said, his voice warm and inviting. As the last light of day faded into twilight, Zara felt a new sense of hope stirring within her. This strange world was full of possibilities, and maybe, just maybe, it held the key to redefining their futures. With the stars beginning to twinkle overhead, Zara turned to her sister, their bond stronger than ever. "We might be exiles," she said softly, "but I think we're finally finding our place in this world." Goya smiled, her heart full. "And who knows what else is waiting for us?" With the ocean's waves as their backdrop and the universe stretching endlessly before them, the sisters felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, together. The following weeks flew by in a whirlwind of exploration and adaptation. With Thomas and Eric by their side, Zara and Goya continued to immerse themselves in Earth's vibrant culture, their initial wariness slowly transforming into a sense of belonging. Every day brought new experiences, each one helping to redefine their understanding of individuality and community. One afternoon, while the sisters were helping with research at the base, they were assigned to analyze a batch of Earth plants that had been collected for study. The scientists were intrigued by the adaptability of certain species, especially in contrast to the controlled environment of Kron. "Let's see if we can figure out what makes these plants thrive," Goya suggested, her practical nature shining through. She examined a brightly colored flower, its petals unfurling in a riot of colors. "It's fascinating how they can grow in such unpredictable conditions." Zara, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns on a leaf, replied, "It's like they have their own individuality. No two are the same, yet they all contribute to the ecosystem." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. Thomas entered the lab, looking flustered but excited. "You two need to see this. There's a festival happening downtown tonight, and we have to go." "A festival?" Zara echoed, her curiosity piqued. "It's a celebration of local cultures and traditions. Food, music, dancing. It'll be a blast." Thomas beamed, his enthusiasm infectious. "And you two are going to love it. I promise it'll be a night to remember." "I don't know, Thomas," Goya said, her practicality kicking in. "We still have work to finish here." "Nonsense. We can wrap up later. Besides, this is part of your cultural acclimatization," Thomas insisted, flashing them a persuasive smile. "Think of it as field research." Zara exchanged a glance with Goya, her excitement bubbling to the surface. "Come on, Goya. It'll be fun." With a reluctant nod, Goya finally acquiesced. "Fine. Just this once," she said, her lips curving into a small smile. The four of them quickly left the lab, excitement electrifying the air as they made their way to the city center. The streets were alive with the sounds of laughter and music, vibrant colors everywhere as stalls adorned with twinkling lights stretched for blocks. The aroma of street food filled the air, and Zara felt her senses come alive with the pulse of the crowd. "This is incredible!" Zara exclaimed, taking it all in. "I've never seen anything like this on Kron." "Wait until you taste the food," Eric said, leading them toward a stall selling tacos. "You're in for a treat." As they approached the stall, Goya's eyes widened at the array of dishes. "What are those?" she pointed, intrigued by the colorful ingredients piled high. Tacos, Thomas replied, grinning. They're one of Earth's favorite foods. You have to try them. Once they ordered, the group moved to a nearby park, where music filled the air and people danced freely. The atmosphere was electric, and Zara felt an overwhelming sense of joy as they dug into their food. Each bite was a new adventure, flavors dancing on her palate in ways she never imagined. As they laughed and shared stories, Zara noticed a group of performers setting up nearby. They wore colorful costumes, adorned with sequins that sparkled in the evening light. Intrigued, she stood up and walked closer to the performance area. Zara, where are you going? Goya called after her. I want to see what they're doing, Zara replied, her excitement bubbling over. As she reached the front of the crowd, Zara felt the energy of the performers as they prepared to take the stage. The rhythm of drums began to pulse through the air, resonating deep within her. The dancers began to move, their bodies flowing gracefully to the music, and Zara was entranced. The sight ignited something deep within her, a yearning to express herself in this vibrant way. She turned to see Goya and the others watching from a distance, their expressions a mix of surprise and delight. Zara's heart raced with the rhythm of the music, and she felt an urge to join in. Before she could think too much about it, Zara found herself stepping into the space, her body moving instinctively to the beat. She let go of her inhibitions, dancing with the performers, laughter and joy flooding through her. Goya watched in awe, her sister radiating a confidence that was utterly captivating. Thomas and Eric exchanged amused glances, both clearly enjoying the spontaneous moment. Look at her go, Eric laughed, clearly impressed. She's got some moves. As the song continued, Zara felt an exhilarating connection to the music and the crowd around her. The performers welcomed her, their movements blending seamlessly with hers, and she realized she was no longer just a visitor. She was part of this celebration, this chaotic and beautiful tapestry of life. Eventually, the performance concluded, and Zara stepped back, breathless and exhilarated. The crowd erupted in applause, and she couldn't help but laugh, feeling a newfound sense of freedom. You were amazing, Goya exclaimed as Zara rejoined the group, her eyes shining with admiration. Yeah, you really got into it, Thomas added, clapping Zara on the back. I didn't even think about it. It just felt right, Zara admitted, her heart racing with excitement. Earth has a way of doing that, Eric said softly, his gaze steady on Zara. It encourages you to be free, to express yourself. The night continued, filled with laughter, dancing, and new friendships forged in the glow of lights and music. As the festival progressed, Zara and Goya found themselves drawn deeper into the experience, their hearts wide open to the possibilities of this world. Later in the evening, while the group enjoyed a moment of respite, Zara found herself sitting beside Eric on a grassy knoll, the sounds of the festival providing a lively backdrop. She felt comfortable with him, their earlier conversations having built an unspoken bond. Do you like living here? Zara asked, her tone sincere. Eric glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. It's complicated. I love it, but there's also a lot of chaos and uncertainty. Sometimes it feels like a double-edged sword. Chaos and uncertainty, Zara echoed, recalling her own experiences on Kron. We were taught that chaos leads to disorder. But I think maybe it can also lead to growth. Eric's eyes lit up with appreciation. Exactly. It's all about perspective. What you see as disorder can actually be a source of creativity and resilience. Zara smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. I think I'm starting to understand that. They shared a moment of comfortable silence, the festival's music wrapping around them like a warm embrace. In that quiet space, Zara felt an undeniable connection with Eric, a connection that transcended their different worlds. As the night wore on, the festival began to wind down, but Zara and her friends stayed close, unwilling to let the magic of the evening fade. They shared stories under the stars, laughter echoing into the night, each moment binding them together as a family forged in the fires of adventure and discovery. With each passing day on Earth, Zara and Goya were beginning to unravel the layers of their own identities, finding joy in their differences and strength in their bond. They were no longer just exiles from Kron. They were explorers of a new world, ready to embrace the journey that lay ahead, together. As the weeks unfolded, the vibrant tapestry of life on Earth continued to draw Zara and Goya deeper into its intricate weave. Each day brought new revelations, fresh experiences, and surprising lessons that challenged their ingrained beliefs about individuality and conformity. The sisters were transforming, their spirits brightening with each interaction, and the bonds they forged with Thomas and Eric only grew stronger. One sunny afternoon, while the four of them lounged in the park adjacent to the military base, Zara lay back on the grass, gazing up at the sky. "Isn't it strange how different Earth is from Kron?" she mused, squinting at the clouds drifting lazily overhead. "Back home, we rarely had such open spaces. It was always structured, controlled." "I get what you mean," Goya replied, picking at the grass. "Here, it feels like there's room to breathe." "To be more." "More of what?" Thomas asked, leaning against a tree, a playful smile on his lips. "More ourselves," Zara answered, her voice thoughtful. "We were always expected to conform, to fit into a specific mold. Here, it seems like everyone is allowed to be unique in their own way." Goya nodded in agreement. "It's liberating but also overwhelming. I find myself wondering if we were wrong to think that individuality was a threat." Eric, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "It's not that individuality is a threat, it's about how it's expressed. On Earth, we learn to balance our own desires with the needs of those around us. It's a dance, really, a give and take." "A dance?" Zara echoed, intrigued. "Can you explain that?" Eric leaned forward, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Imagine a dance floor where everyone has their own rhythm. If someone is too rigid, they can throw the whole thing off. But when everyone allows their movements to flow, it creates a beautiful pattern. That's what life is like here. It's messy and chaotic, but it also breeds creativity and connection." Zara considered this, her mind whirling with the implications. "So, chaos isn't the enemy?" "Exactly," Eric exclaimed. "It's a part of life, and learning to navigate it can lead to incredible things." "That's a perspective we never had on Kron," Goya said softly, her brow furrowed in thought. "Maybe we've been limiting ourselves by only seeing things one way." "Maybe we can help change that," Zara suggested, her spirit igniting with newfound determination. "If we can bring back what we've learned here, perhaps we can influence our own world for the better." "Now you're talking," Thomas cheered, raising a fist in encouragement. "You two could be the ambassadors of a new way of thinking back home. It could really shake things up." Goya's eyes lit up with excitement, the idea igniting a spark of hope within her. "Imagine if we could convince others that individuality doesn't have to threaten harmony, that embracing diversity can lead to strength." As their discussion continued, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the park. They laughed and debated, sharing stories about their cultures and dreams for the future. Zara and Goya felt lighter, invigorated by the shared ideas and the palpable connection they had forged. That evening, as they returned to the base, Zara found herself reflecting on their conversation. Eric's words about chaos and creativity lingered in her mind, prompting her to reconsider her understanding of her home world. "What do you think will happen if we go back?" Zara asked Goya quietly as they settled into their shared quarters. Goya paused, considering her sister's question. "I don't know. But I hope we can be agents of change. We have so much to offer. If only we can convince others to listen." Zara nodded, her heart swelling with determination. "We have to try." The following days were a whirlwind of activity as the sisters dove into their research and studies. They began drafting proposals that outlined their vision for a more inclusive society back on Kron, blending the ideals they had absorbed on Earth with the knowledge they already possessed. Their relationship with Thomas and Eric deepened, and as they worked together, they shared late-night discussions that often wandered into personal territory. One evening, while reviewing their plans in the cafeteria, Goya leaned back in her chair, stretching. "What do you think about love?" she asked suddenly, her voice breaking the comfortable silence. "Love?" Thomas echoed, looking intrigued. "Yes. I mean, we've talked about individuality and society, but what about our feelings?" Goya said, a hint of shyness creeping into her tone. "Is it different here?" Zara felt her cheeks heat up, her thoughts flickering to Eric. "It seems freer," she said slowly. "People express it openly, without fear. Back home, feelings are often suppressed, seen as a distraction from our duties." Eric nodded thoughtfully. "Here, love is celebrated. It's seen as a strength, a motivation to connect and create. Do you think it's the same for everyone? Goya asked, looking between her friends. Even between different species? There was a moment of silence as they all considered the question. Finally, Thomas grinned. Why not? I mean, if Zara and Goya can fall in love with Earth, why can't someone from Earth fall in love with someone from Kron? Zara's heart raced, her thoughts turning to Eric, who sat quietly across the table. His gaze met hers, and for a moment, the world around them faded. A warmth spread through her, and she felt a connection that transcended their different backgrounds, a longing for understanding, for companionship. Maybe love is universal, Goya suggested softly, breaking the moment. Maybe it's about finding common ground. As the conversation continued, Zara and Goya explored the concept of love in their newfound friendship, weaving in their cultural backgrounds while also dreaming of the future. They spoke of the people they cared for, their families, and their hopes for relationships in the worlds they inhabited. That night, as they prepared for bed, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting within her. The experience on Earth was opening her heart in ways she had never imagined, allowing her to see the beauty in both her past and her present. Do you think we'll find love here? She asked Goya, brushing her hair back as she lay down. Goya smiled, her eyes shining. I think we already have. It may not be the kind we expected, but look at how much we've grown together with Thomas and Eric. Love can take many forms. As they drifted off to sleep, Zara felt a sense of hope blossoming within her, a belief that their time on Earth was not just a punishment, but a gift that would help them navigate their futures, whatever they may hold. In the following days, Zara and Goya would continue to deepen their connections with Thomas and Eric, and they would face challenges that tested their resolve, but they would do it together, emboldened by their shared experiences and the growing love that bound them.